Good afternoon, everybody. To go ahead and call this City of Brunswick Commission work session to order for March 5th, 2025. Do you have the mayor out as well as Commissioner Roll? But we're going to go ahead and start so we make sure our presenter has plenty of time this evening to present. So the item on the agenda, our work session this evening is 100 Miles Vice President, Ms. Alice Kites.
Evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today, Commissioners. My name is Alice Paz, and as Commissioner Sabey said, I am the president of Coastal Conservation, the advocacy organization 100 Miles. Our mission is to serve and protect Georgia's 100 miles through education, advocacy, and community engagement. The topic of tonight's work session embodies all of that, education, advocacy, and community engagement. And I would like to just take an opportunity to introduce a few other folks that will be addressing you tonight for this work session. So group members of what has come to be known as the Healthy Coastal Neighborhoods Group has formed, and I'd like to just recognize a few of those tonight. Miss Anita Collins is here. Miss Anita Collins. And then Jazz Watts is here as well. Katie Smith, Rachel Thompson, and Ms. Casey McClary. And then also we have some very active community members who have been following the contamination issue for a number of years, people who have grown up here and been dealing with this situation, their childhood, especially Mr. Hal Hart, who lives in the Riverside neighborhood, and anybody else, Reverend Zach Lyde, of course, and Commissioner Brooks. Thank you so much for being here. So we are going to be tag team tonight. And what I'd like to do is just to, again, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. Basically how to be a coalition of community members and groups. What all started back in 2002 when Brunswick hosted a health fair. Health fair, if you could go to the image, please. The health fair was really one of the brainstorm ideas of the community groups, and it was led by County Commissioner Mr. Alan Booker. And sorry that he's not able to be here tonight, but the health fair, could you go to the next one, please? The health fair was really an opportunity to share information with members about the situation that Brunswick is in related to industrial sites, especially closed industrial sites. Some of those, as you can see here, we had a really nice turnout of individuals, and there was a poll taken asking folks, okay, well, we know that contamination exists in our environment. What are some of the things that you would like to know about how those contaminants are affecting you? And overwhelmingly, the response, we'd like to know how it's affecting. And so Emory School, Rollins School of Public Health, has expertise in this. And so as a result, Emory was invited to come down and to talk to community groups. Commissioner Booker coordinated quite a few meetings really that. And Emory initiated what they have come to call a pilot study to look at contaminants in Brunswick residents. So before we get into the details of that study and the results of that study, I'd like to just walk you through the situation that we're in right now with our Superfund sites in Brunswick. You can go to the next slide. So Brunswick is home to quite a few of what is recognized hazardous waste sites. There's 16 recognized hazardous waste sites in Brunswick, 12 state managed hazardous sites, and 4 Superfund sites. So industrial sites are not always Superfund sites. Industrial sites that are active are managed most predominantly by the state Environmental Protection Division under known as the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, or RCRA. And then the non-industrial sites that are contaminated are managed under what is known as the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, or CERCLA. And that is also known as the Superfund site. it established, back in the day, it established a fund that could go into and clean up and remediate contaminated sites. So Brunswick is home to 4 of these Superfund sites, these industrial sites that are no longer active but continue to have contamination that's affecting the environment and humans. And the sites are considered active or inactive. We have 2 inactive sites, meaning the remediation no longer occurring. The remediation has been finalized. And those include the Wood Preserve site of north end of the county, and also the Hercules 009 or Nally Mountain. So those are closed or inactive Superfund sites. The 2 active sites we have that are currently undergoing remediation include Hercules Superfund site, Terry Creek Hercules Superfund site, right there, Causeway. And then on the western side of the peninsula, Honeywell's LCP site. And so I want to spend some time just talking with you about those situations with those active Superfund sites. And I have them down. So the Hercules Terry Creek Superfund site can be it's all fair to think about that site without thinking about the former Pinova site. The Pinova site is actually on the western side of Highway 17. Y'all know well. It's about 150 acres. It is not considered part of the Superfund site itself. Superfund site is the area east of Highway 17 that was affected by some of the contaminants that, when Hercules was actually producing toxaphene, were distributed to the marshes and the creeks in that area. Again, the Pinova site is about 150 acres, but the east side, where the Superfund site is, 216 acres. It's a really large Superfund site, and so it's so large that EPA has broken it up in what they call operable unit, OUs. Unit 1 is the outfall ditch, and that's about 2.5 acres. And we're really proud that EPA has almost finalized the remediation of those 2.5 acres. But the other 2 operable units include the marshes, was about, the marshlands are about 150 acres of area that is contaminated. And then the other area are the creeks and the waterways, which is about 65 acres. So the contamination of concern in these areas is toxin. Toxaphene is a pesticide that was produced really only by Hercules back in the 60s and 70s and used widely throughout the southern part of the United States for weevils and basically in cotton fields. So it's very active. It was very in high demand. And so when Hercules would release wastewater, it would go into our marshes. And so that toxaphene remains in the marshes. And so I stole from the Glen Environmental Coalition a graphic, the handout that shows you the process of remediating these Superfund sites. And as you can see, we really haven't even gotten an evaluation of what is potentially feasible for the 213 acres of Superfund site that have not yet been remediated. And so the reason I'm going to these individual sites is the action needed from the federal and state agencies are very different based on where we are in the remediation process. So just keep that in mind. All right. Any questions about Hercules or Pinova site right now? Okay. All right. So the second active site that I focus on is the Honeywell LP Superfund site. It was originally the Atlantic Richfield Company. It was a refinery in 1918, I think, to about 1930. It was Georgia Power run, and eventually came the Dixie Paint and Varnish Company. And then LCP purchased the property to basically make chloralkali. It's a chemical that's used in a lot of industrial activities. And so Allied Chemical actually merged with Allied Chemical, which later became known as was the operate entity at the time. So chloralkali is really complex, made up of a lot of different chemicals, and making chloralkali involves a caustic solution producing a caustic solution of gas and hydrogen gas, and it involves these mercury cells that liquid to flow through in order to create that solution. And PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, are a really important ingredient in allowing that chemical process to flow freely. And so one of the big chemicals of are PCBs. And so PCBs were produced from about 1929 to about 1979 when they were banned because they were found to be harmful to humans and animals. Tests on PCBs found that they cause liver damage and immune system, behavioral, and emotional problems as well. So what's important thing to note is that Monsanto actually created and blended PCB specific industrial activities. So when Monsanto was contacted by Allied Chemical, they said, we need you to make us a PCB for this particular action. And so they did. They branded it Aerochlor 1268. So that's that's an important defining factor of the PCBs that we're talking about. So LCP was closed in 1994 because of some criminal activity. They were discharging pollutants illegally. Some people actually went to jail. A lot of people here were involved in a lot of process, and the state involved in identifying some of the contaminants and shutting down the plant. So this is one of the largest Superfund sites in the state. It's over 800 acres. Over 600 of those are marshlands. Then you have the uplands, which is 130 acres, and then groundwater contamination. So again, the operable units are important here. So operable unit 1 is the marsh. Operable unit 2, the groundwater contamination, and then the operable unit 3, the uplands. EP, you can see on that chart from GEC that EPA has basically finalized the remediation for both operable unit 3 uplands and operable unit 1. And they only announced the finalization of operable unit, the marshland cleanup, fall of last year, which is really, really important because when we talk about the remediation, when we talk about the solutions, what we want to think about are what is appropriate for the agencies to be encouraging the responsible party to do specific to each one of these sites. And so we go through this presentation, and this was just kind of a base level of this is what I know about these Superfund sites, because what we're asking you to do tonight is to consider an urging resolution that will address some specific agency activities that we as community members really need our agents to do on our behalf, that our people are clean, so that our environment is cleaned up, and that we can to heal. So we'll get into that in just a little bit, but I want to bring us back to the Emory study that I mentioned earlier. As you know, some of you may have participated in it, but Emory came to Brunswick and asked for volunteers to donate blood that tested to determine levels of toxicity, including the PCBs, including oxyphene, including some metals, and also PFAS. And so they were able to come down and conduct a pilot study looking at 100 individuals volunteer blood samples. Over 200 people volunteered for this study. And so it's a great interest in individuals here. And some of the lead folks in the partnership participated in that. And I invite Miss Anita Collins to come and speak a little bit about the Emory study.
Good evening. The outpouring of individuals who wanted to find out if there were any harmful chemicals in their bodies from these plants. And I have to say from these plants simply because there is the existence of some chemicals that are in our bodies by living, just from them, so many different places. But the importance of this study is the fact that based on the sample that were received, they, results indicated two specific sites. And the LCP is one of them. The, old Hercules is another. And as residents here, the researchers wanted people to have an opportunity to volunteer and participate in the study. Granted, it was a small sample, and the expectation is that they will be able to receive funds to increase the number of persons who have been tested. The results for those who tested is rather alarming, which is fortunate. And it's also alarming because this is a pattern of harm that has been inflicted upon so many communities, not only in Georgia, but in other parts of the United States. The need for there to be some action and some for those who are contaminated by these chemicals is very pressing. And that is one of the reasons for you as a city commission to be aware, particularly since we live in the county, we live in the city, and it's like a double whammy in terms of the concerns. We need more information. We need more research. We know that there's a high incidence cancer in our community. We know there are high incidences of autoimmune diseases. We also know there's a high incidences of pulmonary challenges. So the easiest thing to say is that, well, it's because of your style. And I will not say, because I'm not a medical professional, I would not say that that does not contribute. But there are also underlying effects that should be examined. And the beauty of the individuals who participated in the healthy as individuals of interest is Dr. Kavanaugh Chandler. So with him bringing his expertise as a medical professional so that other medical professionals in the community could be made aware of this problem and to hopefully to look further, perhaps take a deeper dive into some of these effects, health effects that citizens have and are and did have. I appreciate the opportunity to speak briefly too, but it's important to have a personal face to this, to make it more relatable, because it is a very real problem, and we want our city commission to be supportive of helping us, each other, to more, to learn more, and to be very open about it. I know the Chamber of Commerce does not want it known that we have force on sites in Brunswick. I don't even want it to be known. But it's a reality. And it's an unfortunate reality that in this small place, we have the most Superfund sites of any other place in the state of Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The difficulty that we find ourselves in as community members is that we have no authority over these Superfund sites. The sole authority with overseeing the cleanup of them lies with the state and the federal agents. And so Mr. Hart actually expressed some, we started talking about what can we, and so all we can really do is to urge our agency and to urge the responsible parties to do what we think would be best for our community in cleaning this up. And I'll invite him to come up and speak a little bit about the editor that he wrote urging y'all to take action.
Again, my name's Howard, been a resident of Brunswick from day one. It's not till I come in this room do I find how bad my hearing is. I apologize. If I cross or say something that's already been said, I apologize. And first of all, I'd like to share something with you. I don't know if any of you have seen one of these chemicals. I was one of 100 that got it. Have y'all seen it? Do you know what's in it? I got this sheet back. I answered an ad February 16th, 2023 to come volunteer and blood sample done. I did this, got my results back September. I knew I was going to be high on some stuff. I mean, I've lived here all life. I played school, ate dirt at Glen Academy. So I mean, I've done it all here, not all, most. I was expecting some of it to be high. I really was. I was shocked some of the stuff I can test in. The thing that was worrying to me was when we got tested and this thing came through, first one I've ever done. There was stuff on here I didn't even know what it was. And to think that that's in my body, that I don't even know how I got it. When I asked, how did I get this? They don't really have any idea. What's the effect? They don't really have any idea. They know. And that's the scary part. I'm 75 years old. My kids live here. My grandkids live here. I wrote a letter to the Brunswick News. I don't have a date on it, but it was the first of the year, that how important I thought this was. We need to find out what this stuff is. If not for this, article left off the two most important words that I had in this whole thing. If I'd known they were done, I'd have researched it. But they left off my grandchildren. I worry about my grandchildren. I got 4 of them now. Sweetest things you ever had. I had one come see me, sweet as she can be. I worry about my grandchildren. What are we looking at with these people? What can we do? Is there anything we can do? How we do it? We've got a good start. I see Merkley's Loaf. I grew with it. I made money off of it. I hate to see them go. It's a good thing. It's an old plant. It was not as clean as we'd like it to be. Please support a referendum. Let's see if we can get the government come give us a hand, get Emblem down here and support us. And let's find out some of the answers to this thing so we can look at our grandchildren and say, you've got a bright future. You won't have to face what I had to face. Thank you very much. Want to thank you guys for passing the home exemption. You guys are just full of advices, I think. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jazz Watts. I was born and raised here. And I'm also a part of the Coastal Healthy Neighborhoods Group. And also on the board of Coastal Community Health with Dr. Chan, who has not here today, but has been critical in helping folks to understand this contamination that is in their bodies. And these are on some of the slides. There was an article that was done by Emory called The Bird of Brunswick that spoke with Miss Anita Collins and some other folks that have been courageous, in my eyes, with not only wanting to be part of the study, but also publicly speaking about how it's impacted them. And one of the studies done in 2014, and that was with residents on South Island. And that alkylor 1260, which is a specific identifier, was found in the blood. So, you know, I think what's significant about all this is that this contamination, it doesn't discriminate. You know, it's water, it's in the soil, it is in the earth. I would like to see you adopt this urgent resolution. You know, and I guess when I think back about, you know, this and just being back home, I remember what it was like being smelling, you know, Hercules, those smells. But growing up now, back and really starting to understand more about just how significant this is. I didn't know that some of these sites, hundreds of acres, and, understanding how important the remediation is. I didn't understand that all these roads, DNR, the natural resource damage assessment, and understanding the part that, those are the polluters need to play, and also the EPA. And even just having this study, Commissioner Booker pushing, for the health fair, which really led to us all being here, this evening. And when people saw opportunity to move further, to do this research, I mean, there were 100 brave participants, literally, I believe, well over 200 people, but they could only do one, which says that this is urgent, so what can we do? I think that, the people that are here this evening, that the ones that have been a part of the study, that are the supporters, and I want to acknowledge the people that have been, fighting this fight for a long time, even before I was born. And so I feel like it's incumbent upon all of us to do, what we can. So this is a part of that step of, significant support. So asking and hopefully and hoping that you will adopt the urging resolution, because it's so important. It is so significant. It is so impactful. And all of us have to, live with, this contamination that surrounds us. But I think what is important is how we respond to it and what we do about it. So I hope that we've answered most of your questions that, that you have. And if you have some, you'll, be able to add. I just want to really thank you, each of you, for your time and allowing us to before you and to speak on this matter. Thank you so much.
I was just going to let you know, in the interest of time, we are at 6. We're going
sir.
to extend about 5 more minutes. Give you.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted, you have copies of the resolution, and I wanted to bring up a couple of things. The ASs are arguments of fact. They are not, accusatory. They basically acknowledge the value that those industries have provided, the jobs, support for our families for hundreds of years. But it also recognizes the results of the Emory study. So it's a urging resolution is of no cost to the city. And I wanted to let you know that Senator Hodges and Representative Towns have expressed a lot of interest. Every time I see them when I'm in Atlanta, they ask about the Emory study, ask, how is mediation going? They're very interested to see the city and the county move forward with these. So I wanted to let you know that, again, these resolutions are very specific to the agencies who can move this along. It's of no cost to the city. It just shows a unified voice. And we are actually going to be going before the county commission on March the 18th for another work session similar to this. So please consider adopting this resolution. And again, we're here and can answer any questions that you have.
We appreciate you. Thank you to everyone that was presented in the interest of time. If we know we have you all's information, but if there's anyone else's information that we can get in contact with to talk about the resolution or the study or anything else, please provide that information to our city clerk. Make sure we get back in touch. Not to move on too swiftly, this affects every commissioner's area that they cover. So I just give anyone any space for any comments before we move on. Hearing none, I do want to say thank you to Ms. Keys, as Mr. Lai, all others from the community who were here, especially a huge thank you to everyone who participated in that study. That huge step forward, its community to move from just having a feeling of something to putting facts behind those feelings. So thank you to everyone. With that, we will move on to the Brunswick Session regular scheduled meeting for Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. If we can all please stand for our invocation and pledge of allegiance. And our invocation. Okay. Okay. Yes. Pastor Shannon Miller. I'm sorry. I got distracted. Mr. Miller, thank you for being with us.
Lord, we look to the hill for which our help, and our help comes from the Lord who made the heavens and the earth. And Father, we just want to tell you for each and every one that came out on tonight to get their voices heard. Father, we ask that you continue to tell Commissioner and our mayor on the decision they have to make to this Brunswick. Lord, we ask that you lead them, direct them, encourage them. In Jesus' name, we amen.
With that, we'll open it for approval of the agenda and the adoption of the March 2025 regular meeting agenda. Any addendums or subtractions? Hearing none, we'll open for motion.
Like to move that we at the March 5th, 2025 regular meeting agenda.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by this usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to number 2, proclamation presentation to members of the Brunswick Rotary Club, recognizing their 120th year of service. If you please come to the front. Good to see you all. How you all doing? With that, we read what the proclamation says. I'm assuming the physical proclamation is in someone's hands. If not, we will find it. It's Rotary International on February 23rd, 1905 in Chicago, Illinois, USA, is the world's first and one of the largest nonprofit service organizations. And whereas there are over 1.4 million Rotary Club members comprised of personal and business leaders, over 46,000 clubs in more than 200 countries. Whereas the Rotary motto, service above self, inspires members to provide humanitarian service, encourage high ethical standards, and promote goodwill and peace in the world. And whereas Rotary funds club projects, sponsors, volunteers, community expertise to provide medical supply, healthcare, clean water, food production, job training, and education millions in need, particularly in developing countries. Whereas Rotary in 1985 launched a Polio Plus and spearheaded effort, the World Health Organization, U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, UNICEF, to immunize the children of the world against polio. and as polio cases have dropped by 99.9% since 1988, and Rotary International stands on the threshold of eradicating the disease epidemic in only two countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Whereas members of the Rotary Club of Brunswick have participated in grant activities throughout the city, including Keep Golden Isles Beautiful, Grace House, County Head Start, and the Roosevelt Harris Jr. Senior Center, and the fire department's Not Life program. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Cosby H. Johnson, Mayor of the City of Brunswick, along with my fellow commissioners, do hereby claim March 5th, 2025 as Rotary Club of Brunswick Day with City of Brunswick, and encourage all citizens to join me in recognizing the Rotary International for 120 years of service to improving the human condition in local communities around the world. Thank you.
You want to get center? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
With that, we will move on to number 3, which is appeals all beverage license. The first business that we have is Sunoco Food Mart. Mr. Bell for 428 Altama Avenue, permit type retail sale of beer and wine. Please.
Good evening, Commissioner. How y'all doing, Mayor?
Oh, Deputy, I'm sorry.
Deputy.
You're first. Go ahead.
Oh, you go first.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we do have Sunoco Food Mart 1, here for an appeal. They were here previously and were denied, at a different meeting, sorry. But he is here and I have representation today. He is here to plead his case for an alcohol license, for beer.
Beer and wine. Perfect. Mr. Just tell us a little bit about your business and what you plan on doing with a beer and wine license.
So, can everyone hear me? It's a Sunoco on Altama and Community. We took it over like last time, assuming within takeover that beer license would be approved. I know that the committee had some reasons, thoughts, and concerns dealing with the NPA meetings and everything. And I spoke to Pastor Mutchinson, and he did tell me that it's hard for him to get the con together, but he did say that he had no issues going forward because he did not want to hold the business. I did relay to him that if there was any meetings, I'd like to come to that just to talk with the community. Business obviously has been struggling, beer and wine for a gas station is kind of important sales aspect. I know last time we discussed if we can sell more trees or candies and stuff like that. Well, the Dollar Tree across the street, extremely more difficult now. And a lot of the community behind them walks to us And now that's the first stop they go to before they come to me now. So essentially, I don't have beer sales. I'm relying on cigarettes, which are no margins. Pretty much it.
Perfect. I know I was here for the former discussion, so thank you for catching me up on that. Is questions or comments from the commission?
If you don't mind, Mr. Corey, would you just highlight this process a little bit? This is my first time in an appeal process, so if you'll explain this a little bit and what were our decision on.
Right. So when a new license before you or an existing license that might come before you on a sanctions hearing, any decision would deny, suspend, revoke, or refuse renewal of an alcohol license must be transmitted by the city marshal in writing to applicant. And then the applicant under our ordinance is a due process, a procedural request for a hearing. It's essentially an appeals hearing for the city commission to come back and present additional evidence. There is a component that contemplates cross-examining of witnesses as well, but historically it's off that they come back with either having spoken to PA or trying to resolve whatever the initial concerns were when they had the public hearing in front of the city commission. The appeals hearing is not a public hearing. It's not open for the public to come in and speak. It is opportunity for both the city wanted to or the applicant wanted to bring witnesses or just present additional evidence that they think be applicable to discretion that's afforded to this commission in making the final decision as to whether or not to approve or deny. It's important to note that once this appeals process has been exhausted, the application, the license cannot come back before the city commission. It's a 6-month sort of cooling off period is what I think it's put in the ordinance. So this would be a final decision subject to any appeal up to Superior Court if the applicant, but it is afforded, it is the right afforded to an app under our ordinances.
Questions or comments for the applicant? I just have one question. Can you tell me about the area that you are in? You adjacent residential neighborhoods? Are you, tell me about the area.
Not
Are you in a
adjacent.
commercial area?
It's yeah, it's mainly comes right there.
Mainly commercial?
Altown community.
There
Obviously,
you
it's
go.
right in
'Cause
front of the.
across the street, you got Gash and Walmart zone.
You have the Murphy's, the AutoZone, the Walgreens, and then the Citgo right behind as well.
Okay, and then you go
A
behind
little
you,
bit further down.
and that's down where Grandy's and all
Right,
that
right
kind of
across
stuff.
from them. Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, obviously being right at that main intersection and then having what
Yeah.
generally somebody pulls into a convenience store when they can want to see everything
Yeah.
and not having an access to that makes it difficult for even repeat customers. They're not going to come back,
But you would feel that overarching, you are in a commercial district.
in that specific area, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Now, do you know gasoline?
The pumps are currently working. They have some water in the tank, so it's going to take to filter out and stuff. We can get that as soon as, kind of hoping, basing off of this, what future for that station is going to be at. Because you even have the gasoline to draw in the crowd to come into it, it'll, this is a recent problem, maybe in the last month and a half after the storms where the pumps were working. And then we had maintenance come through and they kind of informed us that there's a little less water that needs to be out and stuff. And so, from a business perspective, money into something when the income's not already coming. I work there 16 hours a day. Currently, right now, we closed one store so I had to be there so I could be at this.
Question. Do you have machines in your store as
We
well?
do. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
When you purchased business, were the gas operative?
Yes.
When did they stop being operative?
About a month and a half, 2 months ago.
did want to provide some clarity. I think Mayor's question, it's the property in question is surrounded by highway commercial. So the closest residential would actually be up Altima, I believe, behind what is now the Dollar General, Dollar Tree.
And
I'm
that
sorry.
was, and that was
But
majority of that
College.
housing group walk
Yes.
over. Yeah. Like I said, the previous owner never had, in the store, and I in place, put EBT in there. And hopefully I thought that would rate more revenue, but even then it's very, very.
And you did have a conversation with Pastor Mutchinson?
I did.
Okay.
Also informed me that he did talk to Ms. Harrison.
Additional questions or comments?
I'm just going to make clear, the conversation, Pastor Much, and it is as you stated, and he also sent an email to the committee as well.
And
So for any additional questions that may arise from that and your environment to proceed to speak with and address matter with the NPA, you did do that.
Okay.
And for Pastor Jeffrey Mutchinson is the president, the College Park and the Park NPA. Any additional questions or from the commission? Hearing none, we will now open it for public comment. No public comment. Oh, it's appeal. I didn't know that. Okay. Solid. Sorry, didn't mean to take anyone through that. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing, we will open it for a motion. I like to always repeat, I can't make a motion, so. Brian, you might have to tell us what happens if a motion is not brought forward.
I do think since this is an hearing, it would require a motion one way or the other, whether to affirm the prior decision by the Board of Commissioners or to reverse and grant the license.
That being said, I will open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we to reverse the prior decision made by the.
Hearing the first, do I hear?
Second.
Hearing the first and the second, all those in show by the usual sign of aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing that, the vote is 3-2. The alcohol license is represented as given. All right.
The decision would be rendered as if it was granted at the level.
Prior. Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Fountain Food Store. Mr. Patel, 200 Norwood Street, resale of beer, wine, and distilled spirits.
Okay. We have Fountain Package Store, 2300 Norwich Street. Ms. Patel is here and they are represented by Attorney Ligon and his firm.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. And I'm William Ligon, and I represent the applicant, Ms. Sudabin Patel. With me today is Mr. Jeffrey Luntz. He represents the landowner, and he's not going to make a presentation on the commission. Have questions for him. So we appreciate the opportunity to bring this appeal for you. And I'd like to focus on two specific things that I ask you to consider, and I think they're very important for your decision. The first is the historical use property, and then the second are the qualifications, the character, the reputation, and the value which the applicants could bring the area into the city. On the board, if you actually go back, we've done a little research on the history of the use of the property. And we found a lease going back to 1976, and we believe that before that, the property, alcohol was sold at this store, at this location. And you can see that the property was leased for the sale of alcohol beverages and those items incidental there too. So we have almost a half century at this location of it being used for the sale of alcohol. And that's probably older than most of us in this room. Maybe not me, but certainly many of the people in this room were not born when alcohol was first sold on this property. And that's very important because, you know, even in our system of governance and our societies, we recognize that once people come in and they make an investment in properties and they work that property, you know, they want to, may need to sell, that there's a recognition that there are certain rights that go with that venture, and we call that grandfather. And you recognize it in your alcohol license ordinance, where you don't have to look at the distance rules if that business had been there and had been approved for a long period of time. You recognize it in your zoning ordinances. For example, a property is zoned for one thing, and people in reliance on that, you don't come in and change that zoning and adversely impact the use of that property. And that's important because it brings certainty to business, it brings certainty to people's investments. People who invest monies in properties know that at some point, you know, they may want to retire, they sell, and shouldn't, as a society, we've said, you know, you shouldn't allow someone to lose that investment if by saying you can't renew a license. And so in essence, this really isn't a new license for a new activity, property. It's more like just a rule or continuation license for an activity that's been going on for over a half a century. But really, the focus then becomes on the character, the qualifications of the applicant. And when you look at her qualifications and her reputation and her character, you see that she meets every requirement of your ordinance. She has operated an establishment that sells alcohol in Glynn County for just over 11 years, and there's never been a violation. We have, just to confirm that, we obtained a record from Glynn County. Their record going to go back to 2017. There's not one single citation of a violation of an alcohol ordinance. It's not known as a place where there are problems for loitering. The place kept up, it's kept neat. There are no issues there. In fact, I don't even think she has a speeding ticket on her license. She's the perfect applicant. You know, one of the other things that you look at in your ordinance is what connections are there to the community. And Ms. Patel and her family have been very active in Brunswick. There have been donations to the police department. They are involved in the narcotic awareness program. They donate meals to people in need. There are donations to activities and connections with the veteran community. There's involvement with other nonprofit churches. They are involved with the Black Pilot program, and they've hosted events at the Ritz Theater, and very involved with the Indian communities locally, hosting the annual events over at Selden Park. So there's definitely that connection. But in addition to her qualifications, there are other benefits that are going to flow from allowing this business to continue, because the plans are to open up a grocery right next to it. And the building is the separation that separates grocery from the store. That license is granted by the Department of Agriculture. The plans are for it to open at the same time. And you know, it's easy to think, well, why can't you just open a grocery and maybe not a package store? But statistically, grocery stores are not profitable. You're looking at a profit margin of maybe 0.5% of your sales. And so if you had profit sales of around $16,000 or $20,000, you're looking at $300 a week for a grocery store. Whereas liquor stores have a higher margin profit value, and you just heard that in the prior presentation, and $20,000 a week could generate between $4,000 to $7,000 a week, and that helps supplement and allow that grocery store to remain in business. Now, why would that be important? Its location. When you look for the location of other large groceries, you see that there's not much available in a mile radius of this location. The Wendy store on Highway 17 is 0.3 miles away, 28-minute walk. The Walmart store is a little bit further, about a 30-minute walk. And you can see on the map that that's significant. And according to some studies by USDA, if you have 500 people, or 33% of a town's population, some who live in a low-income area that are not within a mile of a grocery store, then it's considered to have access to food. And so there is a definite need for the grocery in this area. And the grocery will meet the requirements for SNAP and other assistance programs, and there are standards that they'll follow and that they'll meet. Going back to the community involvement, in their other store, they tried to help local businesses as well. They sell local peach there, Georgia pecans, peach, local honey, Lighthouse Coffee, which is a local business, Dakar ice cream, which is made in Brunswick. They sell hats that are locally from in Brunswick. Georgia peach wines, farmhouse wines could be sold in that store, in the liquor store as well, in the package store. So there are a lot of good things that can come. I mean, this is certainly a qualified applicant. I know there's a preference for not, expanding package stores within this Brunswick, but this is different because we have an establishment that's been there for over 50 years, and we have an applicant that meets every qualification above reproach, that's been involved in the community here, and that will continue to be involved in the city of Brunswick. And they can bring something value to the area for people who don't drink. They'd have another resource for food, and that process has been approved. The applicant has been approved by the Department of Agriculture. So really, when we look, there's a preference, it kind of comes against that principle of business has been there for years and years and years. And we just ask that the commission reconsider, and let's preserve that constant certainty, and let's grant license to an applicant who meets every qualification under the ordinance. We appreciate your time, and we'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ligon. Any questions or comments from the commission?
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Ligon, and maybe this is for Deputy Marshal, but I wanted to see the applicant if they're here, and then also, is the applicant on this license the same as we saw before, and is the name on the application to be the operator of the business?
She will be there. She's the same person that was here before. There she is.
Thank you. You were just behind Mr. Ligon. I just see you back there, so I just
That's right.
Thank you. Yep.
And she will be the operator, and it will be a family business. The family will be there. Like I said, they have plenty of connections
Gotcha.
with the community.
And can you give me an update on the number of staff or employees you're about hiring?
4 to 6.
Have any other questions?
Questions or comments?
I forget to mention one thing. There is a lot of support. Just if those who are here, could I ask them to stand up? Would that be proper? Please, if you would stand, if you support this, would you stand up?
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask this question on behalf of Commissioner Saby. In question, has there been contact?
The,
the NPA?
there was that initial cut that the applicant had. I tried to contact, was not able to do that. My understanding that initial contact was more of a neutral position. I have not been able to make that contact, no.
I'll reiterate the last conversation we had regarding this. Listening and taking into account based on the decision that was previously made. I'm one seat. There has not been any information provided in regards to Peel. I was at the NPA meeting, so I'm there to hear. And so there was some representation and the neutrality of that conversation.
Okay.
So we're not gonna rehatch that
Right.
because that's on the record, that's
Right.
information.
Right.
And so that is primarily kind of what I wanted to put out there, because for this process, the process is for the new information to be provided.
Right.
Nothing changes from my seat, because what was said of record by me and still stands now. I would love to see all of those things happen simultaneously. So my position on that does not change. So when we talk about the focus, we have to also, we can go back and do the historical view and points and facts, but we now have to also focus and be bringing on the re-envisioning the community, and we have to listen at the community. And even there are some that are for it, there are some more that are not for it. And so it's now where we are now. And the re-envisioning of that community is what you said. There is somewhat of a food desert in that area. But what we are having come to us is not the addressing or the immediacy and the urgency for the addressing of that food desert. The prime factor is, I need this beer alcohol license, which is not a re-envisioning and a primary desire of that community at large and as a whole. And so as a commissioner sitting in the seat, I still have to stand on my prior conversation, is come to us simultaneously and not just on one facet.
I can represent that it will be simultaneous, because the license, the steps have been taken for the grocery opened. I mean, I have a copy of the license right here, and I will be glad to share that with you. And it had approved, so it will happen. But for that to happen, I mean, if you go into a grocery, if you go into Winn-Dixie, there's alcohol there, and there's a reason for that. Soak up the losses that they have on the food. It's the same concept here, because you can't have a big grocery store in this location. There's just no room for it. But you can have smaller establishments, but they're frequently and have to be coupled with the sale of alcohol. It just doesn't work. And then you're left with the food desert. So in answer to your question, yes, they have taken the time, they have spent the money, and gone the effort to get the approval from the Department of Agriculture. And if you'd like, I'll be glad to pass it around the commission.
Yeah, we could take a look at it, and I believe they had the approval the last time they came.
It was not, they
It
did
wasn't
not
there?
have, no.
You had made the contact, you were waiting to hear back.
It did not, they did not have the approval yet, but I think that one point that the commission was looking at it, will it happen? He couldn't say that it would, as it had not been approved, but it has been approved and they have the license.
Oh, and the food desert part, you do have Old South land and you do have tropical.
Right. There are some smaller groceries in the area. We acknowledge that, but they're smaller. And, you know, I guess if you can't have a big one right there, it's better to have multiple smaller venues for people to have some choices, you know, and some competition, frankly, is a good thing.
My comments will still remain the same in regards to our community, but all the liquor stores on every corner, people outside before work hours, drinking, smoking, hanging out in a community that's one of the poor zip codes, in a community that's predominantly African American. Drugs and alcohol are killing our people.
Right.
We have the crime, we have the drugs saturated around the country. I'm not a person that's against someone having a business because, you know, they want to open the grocery, but it's just not a good look in our community. Yes, everyone considers this their community because you have a business, but you don't live here. You chose to purchase your property in unincorporated Glenn County, not in the city. So you don't have to see this when you wake up in the morning. I'll use examples. Simons their population is bigger than Brunswick. They have 4 liquor stores, 4. 2 on the south end, 2 on the north. Brunswick seems like everyone. And that's just.
The history of this applicant at their other location is that they have not filed the loitering, the issues that you're talking about. That's why their record is clean with Glenn County. One of the reasons why. They use technology in verifying licenses. Their employees are trained. It's state-approved sessions for the sale of alcohol. So they do all that they can to abide by law and to follow the rules and the regulations. They don't want what you just said outside their establishment. It's not good. It wouldn't be good, you know, for the other part of their business as well. So, you know, I understand your concern. I don't know that the nearest, and I may be wrong on this, but the nearest store is a little over 3,000 feet, and I think the next one may be 1,000 feet from this location. I think. So, but I go back to just that principle of grandfathering in, and where you have an owner of property has made an investment and has spent money in reliance on past history, which is a long history, and he needs to use that property for what it was intended to be used for when it was originally established. And now he's being, you know, he told, well, no, you can't do that. That's a financial mind, and I think that concept of grandfathering that we recognize as, you know, and that I think that society understands as well, is there, and it has to be reconciled some way, you know, and I think the best way is to try to reconcile it by looking at your applicants very closely and very carefully, and look at their reputation and their history of how they have conducted their business and their interest in the community with how they have made investments and contributions. And that's important, how you reconcile that. And that's just what we're asking the commission to do, to reconcile these competing interests in a way that can address your concerns and what you just said. And those are legitimate, valid, real concerns. And the interest of an owner of a business who has made a significant investment in that property. And
there has to be a different mind frame. We don't have any meat markets in Glenny. We don't have any seafood markets that sell, seafood or meat wholesale. That can be a moneymaker. It's just, my question always, why here? Why, I mean,
Right.
if you take the look of the city limits itself and you place it across the bridge and what it'll like on Demery or Frederica, it's just not, it's not attractive. And, we're trying to clean the city up. We're trying to make it to, look pleasant. It's just not,
You're doing a good job in the work that you're doing. And all of those things can be done, but I think that we also have to keep an eye open and a mind open and an ear open to some of these other principles that I've been talking about. And that's what we're asking the commission to do. If you have a situation, certainly if someone were coming up and want to open a brand new establishment right around the corner, deny it. But if you have a situation where someone's been there for a long, long time, and this is what they feel like they need to do to make use of their property, and they've made those investments in time, investments and money investments, then let's recognize that principle of grandfathering. I think that people at large can understand that. I mean, I think it has a right feel to it. And then you shelter against those other concerns that you've mentioned, which are very real and valid concerns, by looking at the history of that applicant. And what is their history? What have they done before? And an 11-year history without incident is a pretty good history. And that's I guess
Attorney
that's the
Ligon,
emphasis that we're doing.
let me ask you this
Yes, ma'am.
question. The business that they own or operating, is it within close proximity to a neighborhood?
It's right off the interstate.
No.
I don't know.
It's not. So therefore, okay, it's
Right.
not.
It's not. No.
It's not.
No. And I understand that. But again, that also runs up against the principle of grandfathering. When this establishment was originally opened, this was a neighborhood. I mean, when it was placed there.
It was a
And-
neighborhood also, like when the person comes up with a business idea, okay, they need to look at what is the need. I mean, of course you want to make money and
Correct.
you assess the situation, but it's also you want to say, I want to be a positive impact within the community. So you assess the community, the needs or target that improve the community. And you mentioned about historic data here of that store. There was a laundromat right next to that liquor store. So those are things that's needed within that community to improve it, to help
Right.
those who not have the ability or have washer and dryers in their homes.
Mhm.
So if we want to, for me, if a person wants to help our city and they come and make money, they need to looking at long-term money, not just trying to make a big, large money overnight. I want to not only, because in due time, I will make money, larger sums of money on this particular community. So to say that the grocery store, yes, and I understand everything you said about they need to do it simultaneously.
Right.
And I understand that they're only going to make X amount of dollars. But not only they are investing money, but they're investing to improve the city of Brunswick. So that's what I'm looking for.
Right.
So, and then to look at when they assess our community, how can I help bring something, because I have the capital, but add to this community. And
Right.
the needs people to improve, because I will get a return in the long run.
Right.
And that's my thought.
Right.
Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, we will open it for a motion.
Corey, tell me again, what are the options we have to present?
Essentially two motions, a motion to affirm the underlying decision by the commission, which was to deny the license, or a motion to reverse and ultimately grant the license.
If we have no more questions or comments, we'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to uphold the last vote was denial.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. None. The original decision is upheld or affirmed. Thank you all. We will now move to number 4, update regarding the direction of the HIGH program. Ms. Hill.
Thank you.
Good evening. How's everyone tonight? Good. Good. Thank you. My name's Chelsea Hill, and I work with as the housing program manager. So we just wanted to give you guys a quick update on the housing program. These are not things that we're looking to do. These are that we have already done or that we're working on currently. So this is just a complete day of what's been going on in your new housing program. So we would like to take the housing program and start it off with a pilot program, really leveraging the CBG program that we already have currently in the city. And we've decided to do this because they had taken on quite a few applicants throughout the process, and they've really have an abundance of applicants, and some of those are beyond the scope of work that they actually do to the homes. And instead of removing them off the list, it gives us a great opportunity to a promise we've already made and bring them over to the housing program to actually bring those homes back up to a safe and healthy standard, where this CBG program usually will work on roofs or AC units and smaller projects, maybe handicap ramps or upgrading a room. But for us, we can actually upgrade the electrical and plumbing and, the foundation of them. So sorry. So with that being said, there's probably 12 homes that are available on the CBDG program that we could move over to the housing program. And it's going to take us a little while, not that we can do all of them, but we would start at like a first come served basis. As they've entered the CBDG program, we would start first one and just go down the list and start rehabbing these homes. So that's what we'd like to do with the housing program that was approved in January of 2024. Next slide. A really awesome opportunity that came to us was the MLK road parcel that was donated to the city. It's about 3.7 acres. We had it put in surveyed, and we believe we're able to put about 40 properties or 40 units on this property. And we do want to propose a build of mix of affordable housing and market rate housing. Some of this with the market rate would to help bringing back into our housing program to help stabilize it and keep it running. And we all believe that healthy communities are comprised of all income types. So we thought that would be a project to put together there, as well as it gives us, next slide, the opportunity to have some really awesome partnerships in our city as well.
One of them being the like Housing Authority. They have a voucher program that could help assist moving residents out of public housing and moving into home ownership. Another one would be with Habitat for Humanity. They already build homes for affordable, and programs opened up to a variety of individuals as well. And they do already have a contractor that is building at a very low cost, and it would enable us to be able to create owners with rents that are affordable for your low income. And when I say low income, that is your individuals making less than 80% of our average median income. Okay. And as well, it would help us with stakers and asking for donations to our program. We've reached out to the Port Authority and sent them a letter to just start supporting what our initiative is for housing, and being able to give them a property that's already set up, plotted, surveyed, and ready to go. It shows them that what we're working on, we're creating a foundation, and we're moving forward with that. Next slide. Talking about partnership, we were brought an opportunity to be able to partner with the Housing Authority, Brunswick Housing Authority, with Whispering Oaks. We have not made a commitment or moved too much forward with this, but we do have the ability to invest into Whispering Oaks and bring back 42 affordable housing units and then back to the market. One thing about the Brunswick Housing Authority, we feel like we have the souls, and if we can invest into Whispering Oaks, that allows them to use their funds in other areas of the city to build housing, acquire land, and at the same time, our number one goal is to create home ownership in the city of Brunswick. Next slide. So, talking and working with the land bank about acquiring property. We believe the land bank can huge benefit to the housing program as we acquire property, and we're strategic about how we allow developers to develop property that they purchase from the land bank, and as well as adding incentives that may encourage that low income or develop in areas that are less desirable. We've also talking to developers and contractors, trying to figure out what can help them continue to keep the balls rolling in the city as they continue to develop. A lot of developers and contractors that I've been speaking with are local. They're born and raised here, they're acquiring property, and they're starting to develop it. So also, we would like to start, being plans that are pre-approved, cutting prices for them at time to just keep the development going, but for developers and contractors that are on a much smaller scale than your developers. So, and I just put some bulletin points to show you that, tap-in service fees and permit, and maybe the possibility of 50% of the cost demo and properties in blighted areas, because most of the property that our local contractors and developers are buying are off of our tax deed or tax auction. Thank you. All right. So while doing all of and learning and speak a lot of our partners, we've also started working back on our GIC certification, getting those guys back together and making sure that we get the certification for the alumni. And this extra points whenever we're filling out DCA grants, and they give us some technical assistance as far as helping us develop a housing program. well as we'll turn in our Plan First community, our Plan First location. We want to be a Plan First community. This will give you recognition across the state. It'll also help open up being to DCA programs and reduce loans as well. And then you guys know we have applied for the CHIP grant. Hoping to hear something back for that in April, so we're really excited about it, but we turn that in January 31st. And leaving you guys, I threw this map on there because I've researched the city a lot, and these are a lot of projects that you guys have already partnered with and helped create a foundation that is really setting the stage for what we're wanting to do with housing, from infrastructure to LIHTC programs to ordinance changes. This is a really not to kind of show you the work that you guys have already been doing in the city and what's really setting us up for an awesome housing program. So we're just really excited about that. And one of my biggest, I guess, goals is to really start having everyone talk about the city in a more positive look, and just realizing that the city has done a lot for this community to get it ready to be bigger and better. And this kind of gives you a map of everything that we've done and just all the projects been working on and what we're going to continue to work on. So that's kind of what I came in today to tell y'all about that. That's my update. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Questions or comments from Mission? I see we got a long agenda ahead of us and we could all, with Ms. So definitely ask some questions here, but know that afterwards also get into there.
Yes.
Open it up for questions.
I don't have any questions. I have a comment that I'm glad to see the partnerships are getting to, in place so we can move forward and make more increase our affordable housing within our community. So good job. Keep up the good work. And
I appreciate that. And I really said as well, we're talking with local realtors and bankers, and Chris Bays and I have a homeowners club starting up next week. We're really excited. I do want to educate individuals on how to become a homeowner and what it takes. But so there are some other really awesome things that we're doing.
yes, I just
partnerships.
found out June is home ownership month. So
Oh,
not
okay,
sure.
cool.
So look different things of doing presentations. So I might have to hook up with you for presenting something with
Yeah.
the community.
Please,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I just had two quick things. The railroad parcel is that behind Risley Annex? And then the last thing, secondly, I do thank you for all that you've been doing, with all of the housing plan. I'd really, really love to see a partnership happen with the city, with Whispering Oak. Feel as if the apartment complex, that location was a very unique location and has gone really, 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 really downhill in the couple of years. So it'd be really, really good
Yeah.
to be able to get those apartments.
We got on there, we have spoke about it, and we know it's a big ask, but we do think it's a positive, and I wanted to go ahead and present that to you guys so y'all could ponder it about it and present us with some questions and how we could move forward with that, because there is a great opportunity for us, and it's quick housing,
Right.
and it's in a great location.
Yeah. And it's happening now with all of the, before housing took over, the condition apartment forced
Yeah.
people to move out or have nowhere to live. So,
Right.
yeah.
So I know.
Something about the usage of the CDBG funds and the transfer of some of the people off of that list. I was kind of confused on how that looks, because you're still gonna have people that may not need full magnitude of a complete do-over. So how are you to handle those that may not need a complete do-over, but they do need some electrical work, they do need some roofing work? So where are they gonna fit in?
The CBDG program, the small scope of work would stay with them, but as they go through their list, because they have quite a few people on their waiting list, two homes that I'm at right now were inspected in 2023, which means they were picked up in 2022. So they're coming down on their list and they would actually just be pushed off because they could not support the scope of work. So this gives us the ability to step in and just make that promise right that the city had said they'd rehabilitate their home, and that program could not do that, but our program could. So instead of going out and opening up for more applications, we thought it made more sense to pull those applicants because they've already went through the process, they're already qualified, and they've been waiting for their homes to be rehabilitated. So we think it's just best to go ahead and pull them in ours. Once that list is cleared up and they're called back, there would be a new process of how we brought homes into the housing program. But at the moment, not to open up an application process so we don't end in the same boat as them. And now we're making that promise right to the individuals that we've been waiting for over 2 years to have their homes repaired.
Okay, so that clarity and understanding for the public and anyone watching by Zoom, so that they will know. Because we're going to get the questions, and I just few of them last week, some calls about being on that waiting list and looking to have that done. And so I had her to call into office. So the existing list, you're going to close that list out by pulling those prior applicants over to what you're doing. So that's gonna draw down that list and clean that list up. So it's not, but you're not gonna accept any new applications for CDBG or minor repairs.
Not for CDBG. At this point, they will continue their program with the things that they can do, but some of the applicants, and I don't want to make a promise, because, we'll still have to vet those listings and kind of see which ones we can address. But they will have, the CDBG program renews every year. And the ones that they can do, and they will still be doing small projects.
Okay, just want to make.
Yeah, they will still be doing their small projects, and they still have, the ability to address some of the new applicants into their program.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So like to just comment, in addition to all of the things that Chelsea has mentioned, we've also made contact with Savannah. We all with Savannah, and she has visited and talked and developed partnerships and relationships there. And also, she'll be visiting, her and John will be visiting Gainesville as well, to see. We visited there, have a program that what I would consider similar to ours, but we're about a few years behind because they've started their program, I think, back in 2019. We are so close on track to what they have done. We want to use some of their techniques and also just learn about how the successes and failures of their programs as well.
You all make sure you get Taylor, because we've been addressing this land bank as well. I'm gonna be on that trip with you all as well, so that we can get a full scope. So, because when we're talking about partnerships, when we're talking about tools, the land bank is a tool for this housing program. So we want to make sure that that information is equitably disseminated so that efforts can be maximized from every direction.
Yes, I've met with Taylor multiple times, thoroughly enjoy her, and we were trying to meet once a week, but our schedule a little wonky for a minute. But our goal is to meet once a week. I actually asked to move over office. Yes, great asset, and the bank is a great tool as well for us.
I'll just thanks again for all your hard work. We're excited about this. Keep up the good work, and I think all of the commission and everybody and staff and John, thank you for your help. We'll continue to move forward and look forward to fixing some houses and building some houses.
Yes, absolutely, and creating homeowners in this Brunswick. Yes.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
With
Thank
that,
you,
we will,
Chelsea.
with that, we will
Thank you,
move
John.
to number, consider approval of February 19, 2025 regular scheduled meeting minutes. Any changes, addendums? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the February 19th, 2025 regular scheduled meeting minutes.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll now move on to consider approval of resolution number 202-4, authorizing application of a coastal incentive grant from the Department of Natural Resources and to commit City of Brunswick resources as a local. Director Albertson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Back up and give you just a little bit of history as to how we got to this point. The area down there around south end of town, Habersham Park, Glen Middle School, south end of Lanier Boulevard is a constant flooding problem through stormwater runoff flooding as well as tidal influence flooding. And both of those areas are listed, projects are listed in our stormwater master plan as priority projects. One, I believe, is number 6 on the list, and the other is number 11. I forget which is which. But both are definitely high priority areas for us. So a few months, we started working with Georgia Department of Natural Resources, the Coastal Resources Division here in town, and the Board of Education to look and find some solutions to help with control the tidal flooding and the stormwater runoff flooding and make some improvements in that area. We went out and applied for and received what we're calling a NIFWIF through the National Fish and Wildlife Federation. And that was a grant to begin the design improvements within that area. That NIFWIF program is set up in a 3-phase program. Phase 1 or year 1 is your preliminary design up to about 60% design. Phase 2 completes the design and the permitting stage, and then phase 3 is your construction. We got phase 1, we're working through it, applied for phase 2, that funding was denied. So there we are kind of working through initial design, and then funding was gone, so we had to kind of scramble to find a way to keep the project moving there. And it turned out the coastal incentive grant was an appropriate way to kind of keep that moving. We used coastal incentive grants in the past on several projects and had good success with them, and it's a good partnership with the Coastal Resources Division as well. It is a 2-year application that we turned in this year is a 2-year program. 1 for the task will be completion of that preliminary design, and then 2 would be the permitting. Most of these tasks would require Coastal Marshlands Protection Act permits. So year 1 to complete the design, year 2 would be the permitting. The tasks involved that we're including in the application are elevation of a critical segment of the roadway there in Lanier or in front of Glen Middle School, elevation of Lanier Boulevard there where it floods at high tide overtops there. Drainage improvements within that ditch there along the north side of Glen Middle and then the neighborhood of Habersham Park there. Relocation Glen Middle driveway to help with connectivity under Lanier Boulevard to help the move between the ditches and the tide or the marsh pocket. Other connectivity under 4th Avenue to take advantage of the marsh pocket to the south of 4th Avenue. Good bit of area there. Some of that water could be diverted that way and use that as storage. And then some run reduction measures at Glen Middle School, trying to reduce the water coming off of there that goes into that system. So as I mentioned, this is a 2-year, we've set it up as a 2-year project. The maximum funding available through the Coastal Incentive Grant is $1,000 per year, and the program requires a 1-to-1 match. So for 2 years, it's a $160,000 match for us. Part of year 1 match would come from staff salaries, in-kind matches. We'll be looking at a $50,000 match in year one and an $80,000 cash match in year two. Both of those would come from SPLOST 22, Storm Drainage Fund. And then that would get us through, if it's fun, this would get us through the permitting stage. And then this year, we're going to go ahead and eye for the construction of the NIFWIF fund. And hopefully when this gets funded, we've got the NIFWIF year three money sitting there, we can move right into construction. If it all works like we planned. So this is the author or the resolution that goes along with the coastal incentive grant application, just agreeing that funded, we would provide that cash match that goes along with the program.
Questions or comments?
In the term you just used, Garrett, cash match, it's cash or in kind, correct?
Yes, the match can be cash or in kind. This is set up at 50 and 80, so total $130,000 is cash. The other 30 in year one would come from in kind.
Are we, I guess my question is, are we into that 80 for year two, or if something comes up, we can provide additional time or something to offset that, or?
We can.
Okay.
There's some adjustment there. I guess the way it's set up with the permitting, that process, it's more regulatory, so there's not that much
I
staff,
got
you
that.
know, involvement there. But
I got it. Okay, awesome. That was my only question.
Additional questions or comments? The only availability or thought that I would have around the $80,000 in cash is I think we learned on the finance call, is being funded through a full organization or a federal entity.
Department of Interior, I believe we decided.
The Department of Interior. There is clearly a lot going on the federal level. And I think it is a linear projection to assume that dollars will flow as normal. And so I would be worried about $80,000 being committed to a design phase, that if we do that, would the actual construction money be available? So I would want us to be thinking about nimble of real cash that goes in versus actuality of NIF dollars from the Department of Interior actually flowing our direction. And I know that's something, we can ask our government affairs people to continue to ask on a federal level, or whatever questions need to be asked, but I just want to weigh both of those at the same time.
Sure, it's one flexibility in here is that these tasks don't have to be packaged as one to go through. Once they're permitted, we could divide them into smaller projects, and say we want to bite off a $50,000 project to fund locally out of SPLOST or something like that. We can kind of pick and choose at that point once we have.
I would move through that.
Right.
Got it. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we authorize you to sign the resolution number 2025-4 to approve application for a coastal incentive grant and to enter a project agreement with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources.
Hearing a second. Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Director. We will now move on to consider approval of the Police Department Evidence Rooms reconfiguration. I don't see Chief Smith.
Yes, I will be presenting on behalf of the chief. She is
Okay.
on her way to Atlanta to a Capitol Day for police
Gotcha.
and was not available.
Good deal.
Lieutenant Daniels is here to answer questions regarding the evidence room. Basically,
To you, Lieutenant Daniels.
our evidence rooms are overflowed and need to be reconfigured, as well as be reinforced, because for our certification of our department, the evidence rooms that we have right now are in need of reinforcement. So proposing to have 2 locations so that we can have proper space, storage, and security. The project itself entails reinforcement, which will include fencing, at $30,000, rolling shelving for $40,000, security locks and enforcement of the doors for 1,000, and a camera surveillance system, 5,000. So a total of $8,000 is estimated for the project. And we are proposing to get those funds from our SPLOST city building movements. They have had a lot of, I guess, unsafe conditions in terms of their storage, and also just a lot of storage problems because of the lotions. And with that, I will ask if there are any questions. Thank you.
Do you want to add anything?
No, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Questions or comments?
I just have, what kind of fence? I mean, I know it's fencing, but the fence.
It would be like a chain link fence, but it'll be on the inside of the, for frozen.
Inside, I'm sorry.
It'll be on the inside of the room that was a chain link fence. But
And for the ceilings.
Oh, so it's
Yeah,
like,
it will be
like a
total
wrestling
fencing.
cage.
Yes.
Somewhat, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not one
And Ms. McDuffie, okay, so we're going from one location to two, right?
We are currently have 2 locations, but we are reinforcing, we will still have 2 locations, but we'll be moving a lot of the evidence that's in one of the primary locations to the second location.
I got you. So all these improvements are for kind of the both locations then?
Well, the one location is, doesn't any reinforcement. It just needs to be kind of rearranged. And the shelving needs to be rearranged. The second location needs the reinforcements.
I got you. And what do we anticipate this? We're fully growing as a city, and our police force is growing. Anticipate this is like for lack of a better word, a Band-Aid that'll get us 5 years. This is something we project are good for 10 years, or do we have any idea?
Go ahead.
It could be for long-term stuff.
Okay. So this is for the foreseeable future.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the funding for the reinforcement of the evidence room.
Second.
Hearing it first and a second, all those in favor show by sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll now move on to number 8, approval of financial reports as of January 31st, 2025. Director Perry.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening. All right. Finance report as of January 31st, 2025. General fund. Cash for the month for revenues, we brought in 125,948. Year to date, looking at about 11,937,142. Year to net revenue to expenditures is 702,559. Total cash balance is 7,648,348. Now, when we talked in the finance committee meeting in regards to the prime south number, there was a change in ARPA that we had at the end of the month that we moved. That will be transferred in ARPA towards the end of the month. That will change that number from the negative to plus. So I wanted to at least make sure that we're clear on that, and I wanted to clarify that with y'all. Our lost sales tax changed from 2025, 896,988. Year-to-date loss, 3,505,971. We're 1.19% compared to last year, January 2024. Next, on the capital projects of SPA 6, I do know that Commissioner Gwen requested to make sure that we do a reconcile, and we did reach out to a consultant that's going to assist with some historical information that we want to make sure we achieve. So within the future reports, see from what we reached out to our consultant, make sure that we get the information you're looking for. Now, capital projects, SPLOST 2022, we expended $5,225,668. Total SPLOST distributions was $13,330,435.74. with the total cash on hand as of January 31st, 9,353,164.13. Okay. Our Norwood Street Common Fund. Norwood Street Fund, for the most part, year to date, that's just interest income that comes into that. Total since inception is $550,816. Total for Roosevelt Harris Multipurpose Center year to date for the total budget, we budgeted at $452,018. Inflows is 38,230. Total expenditures for the year to date is 205,331. Yes, we have a net that reduced in a negative 167,101, and there will be a transfer in from grant general fund to make that turnover for the next report for our next commission meeting. Okay. Now, in our ARPA fund, our cash balance as of January 31st, 2025 is $5,506,589. There was not too much activity from last month in ARPA, but I do expect some activity in the February report that you will see some changes. And this is basically the commitments that we are supposed to be committed to as of 12/31/2024. Now for our sanitation fund, our bill for year to date, sanitation billing has been $1,243,736. Total revenue is $1,297,199. Our total expenditure is $1,175,409. For an operating income of $121,790. Total available cash on hand is $1,236,070. Stormwater utility fund. Our stormwater utility fees is $929,920. That's what we brought in storm fees. Expenditures, our total outflows was $678,440. Our total ledger cash balance on hand for stormwater at the end of January 30th is $609,215. And for our Lawrence Center, for the most part, we brought in $21,007.99. Majority of that was pretty much half of that was all salaries. Year to date for transaction for our Lawrence Center is $117,842.04, which we budgeted $189,933. So year to date, we're still over budget at under budget $72,090.96. And that concludes the finance report.
Questions?
Yes, ma'am.
On the front page, make sure I'm not reading this correctly or whatever. Prime South,
Right.
that's negative
695, 930,
That's
97.
negative?
Yeah, we had a transfer of money, ARPA funds, that I think that you see that we had from last month, from general fund. That's going to be adjusted the next entry for the next month's report you should see.
Okay, so that makes that balance. Okay.
Yeah, that will change that balance. It's
Okay.
about, I think, in ARPA districts, I think, in expense, I remember, we have close to about 600,000 or 700,000, I think, on transfer funds that are in and out of that fund from general fund. So by next month, we'll have to make sure that take care of that.
So that amount negative comes from that Georgia fund, which gives you that 7 mil. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So my next question is, it just hit me now. I see go over here at Splash 22.
Okay.
Total cash on hand is $9,353,164.13. That amount of money included inside that Georgia Fund 1?
The total cash on for SPOS 22?
Yes, sir.
In the bank account.
Yes, it is.
It's
Our Georgia one runs about $26 million most months, between 26, 27 million. So it includes that cash on hand for ARPA, for the SPLOST, and for the general fund.
Okay, so the numbers at the bottom on the front page, general fund, that's not the total amount of money in Georgia Fund 1?
No. We invest.
What does that number there, that 8 million represent?
That's the general fund, Georgia fund balance.
Okay, and then, so it has that 8 million plus the 9 million from 22, plus the 160,000 from SPLOST 6.
Yes, and what I'll do, what we'll do next month is report the total Georgia Fund One balance. That'll give you kind of that total that we have invested. And be a end of month balance, which, you know, changes throughout the month. We can give you the Georgia Fund One total balance of what's invested.
Okay.
I think that'll kind of answer your question.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And thank you for clearing that up. That's one of the things that I addressed when we had our finance committee meeting. So
Correct.
thank you for clearing that up.
And let me just say, the negative balance that shows as a Prime South, based on the general ledger, for Prime South, it's not what's actually showing in the bank. It's basically what we show as a general ledger amount for Prime South. So it's that we had a negative balance in the bank. It's basically we were transferring between accounts, Prime South.
And you remember you asked about the last meeting in regards to line items for, I think, sanitation with the city manager. We do a different report, and even part of the Georgia Fund One, given it just a focus on Georgia Fund One, I'll look to be able to bring that to you next
Awesome.
week.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you, Director. We'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the financial reports as of July 31st, 2025.
Second.
Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by sign of aye.
Aye.
All those the same. Hearing that, the motion passes 4-1. We'll now move on to number 9, consider approval of quick claim release for 179 Amherst Street, Brunswick, Georgia. City Attorney Corey.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What we have before you in your packet is a quick claim deed of release, and I'll some background on this. This particular property at 1729 Amherst Street was subject to a city-held tax deed that dated way back, I think into 1976, I'm sorry. Subsequently, in 2009, there was a closing that took place where they came before the city commission, and the tax deed in 1976, and common practice back then, if a singular owner owned multiple parcels in the city of Brunswick, rather than do multiple tax deeds, if they were delinquent on all of their tax, they put multiple properties on a singular tax deed, if you're following. So the 1976 tax deed actually contained multiple parcels. In 2009, when the close took place, the attorney for those closings came before the city commission, request a release for the properties from the tax deed. The 2009 tax deed omitted what is lot 121, which is now commonly known as 1729 Amherst Street. So, after there's been 2 generational changes, the grantees listed in this quick deed of release, Lutheria Roundtree, Geraldine Wilson, Patricia Cooper, and Rayfield Barnaman, have gone through probate, and then it was discovered that there is still this remaining claim left on the title of 1729 Amherst Street, lot 121. The 2009 quitclaim deed signed by the city and approved by the city commission at that time, released in all claims by the city of Brunswick in the tax deed that was listed back from 1976. And this is sort of cleaning up all of those and making sure that lot 21, 1729 Amherst is now also released in from that tax. So it should have been included in 2009 on the claim deed of release. For some reason, it was not. And now this is cleaning the title up for these grantees. kind of a common way of just saying, I think we made a mistake in 2009.
This is that parcel that's kind of across from Rise Ridge parking lot and
Yes.
vacant currently on the corner.
Is corner of H, I think.
Amherst and H.
Yep.
And all of the taxes have been paid on that property?
I believe that is correct all the way up until today. If it shows anything, the tax deed, I think, and I'm sorry, I misspoke. It was 19.5. It was $14.32. I assume it was taken care of in 2009 when that release was brought before the city commission, and that there was just a mistake that the legal description on the deed did not include 121, lot 120 or 1729 Amherst.
Okay, and so that and all of the taxes, including any penalties and interest or any of that thing, have been involved.
I believe that they were resolved in 2009, and
Okay.
that's why this is just sort of a cloud title at the moment.
Okay.
And Jenny Kittles with Lily Firm provided a full title search when they submitted it to our office for review.
Okay.
Any additional comments?
Mr. Mayor, before you take the vote, I will recuse myself on this vote.
Yes. Is there a need to give reason publicly? Or no?
Um,
Don't have-
Okay, I just. Oh, okay, I just didn't know. With that, we will open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the quitclaim deed release for 1729 Amherst Street.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and second, all those show by sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. With anything for executive session?
I do not have a need for executive session.
Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion to.
Motion to adjourn.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and second, all those in favor show by sign of aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, we are adjourned.